Let me share something that might reset your perspective. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a cycle of thoughts about someone, even after swearing you'd moved on? It happens at the most unexpected times, in the silence of the night, when a familiar tune plays, or when a random smell triggers a flood of emotions you didn't see coming. It's not always a dramatic event. Sometimes it's subtle, like a distant echo in your mind, but it's there, persistent. Maybe you rationalize it, telling yourself it's just nostalgia, something insignificant. You try to bury these thoughts under a pile of distractions, hoping one day they'll just vanish. Yet despite all your efforts, they remain. It's as if their presence holds a meaning that goes beyond memory. Carl Jung believed nothing in the unconscious is random. Thoughts don't arise without a purpose. The reason someone keeps resurfacing in your mind is because your psyche is trying to communicate something. This person isn't just a memory. They're a symbol, a representation of something far greater than themselves. The unconscious is a vast, intricate map, filled with every experience, every wound, every joy, every unresolved emotion. Some things stay tucked away, while others, the ones carrying significant weight, find ways to reappear repeatedly until you finally listen. You might believe that with closure the thoughts would stop. Maybe you think that with enough distractions you'd finally be free. But what if I told you the harder you try to silence them, the louder they become? Jung postulated that what we resist most is what persists. The mind doesn't let go of what it still needs to understand. So, the real question isn't why you still think of them, but what part of you is being reflected in them. Sometimes, the people who occupy our thoughts the most aren't just individuals. They're mirrors showing us something we haven't yet recognized within ourselves. Think about it for a moment. What if the reason you can't stop thinking about them has nothing to do with them? What if they're just a reflection, an echo of something your own mind is trying to decipher? Carl Jung believed we don't see people as they truly are. We see them through the lens of our own experiences, wounds, and unspoken longings. In other words, we project parts of ourselves onto them, often without even realizing it. Projection is one of the most potent psychological forces shaping human relationships. It happens when we take something buried within us, an insecurity, an unmet need, a repressed part of ourselves, and attribute it to another person. We think we're obsessed with someone, but in reality, we're obsessed with what they represent. It's not just about them, it's about what they awaken in us. Have you ever admired someone so deeply, drawn to them in a way that felt almost uncontrollable? It might be because they embody something you've rejected in yourself, some part of you you've suppressed or forgotten. Maybe this person has the self-confidence you secretly crave, or a sense of freedom and unapologetic way of living that you long for but never let yourself embrace. Your mind fixates on them, not because they hold the answer, but because they remind you of something missing in you. Then there's the other side of projection, the shadow, the parts of ourselves we don't want to see, the wounds we don't want to acknowledge. Sometimes the people who linger longest in our thoughts are the ones who hurt us the most. We replay conversations, reliving the pain, analyzing every detail as if searching for something we lost. But Jung would say this fixation isn't about them. It's about the part of you that was activated by the wound, the fear that was exposed. And until you acknowledge what that is, your mind will keep circling, trying to solve the puzzle. So ask yourself, what does this person represent to you? What qualities do they have that resonate with something inside you? What emotions do they bring up? The truth is, the thoughts won't stop until you stop looking outward and start looking inward. The person you're thinking about is just a mirror, and the reflection is trying to show you something important. This is where we go even deeper, because some of these attachments, these persistent thoughts, aren't just about projection. They're tied to something even older, something that shaped your relationships long before you even met these people. This is where we begin to unravel the hidden forces of archetypes, universal patterns that dictate who we connect with and why. Not all thoughts are just thoughts. Some run deeper, tracing back to patterns older than you can remember. Have you ever wondered why certain people leave such a massive impact on you, while others fade effortlessly into the background? Why some connections feel almost fated, as if they were meant to happen? Carl Jung believed this wasn't random. He argued that our strongest emotional attachments aren't just about the people themselves. They're shaped by archetypes, universal patterns deeply rooted in the human psyche. Archetypes are like invisible blueprints, guiding how we see the world, how we love, how we attach. They're the unspoken forces that pull us towards certain people while steering us away from others. And the most powerful of them are the Anima and Animus, the unconscious feminine within the male psyche and the unconscious masculine within the female psyche. When someone keeps resurfacing in your mind, it might be because they've awakened this deep, inner part of you. Think about the people you've been most drawn to in your life. Did they follow a pattern? Did they seem to share certain traits or evoke similar emotions? This isn't just coincidence. Your unconscious mind has been shaping your attachments long before you even noticed. Some people embody qualities you seek, an energy that feels familiar. Others bring out something buried in you, old wounds, unresolved conflicts, deep fears. This is why certain people stay in our minds long after they've left. They didn't just enter our lives, they activated something within us. Jung believed love and obsession often have little to do with the person we're fixated on and everything to do with what they represent to us. That's why some connections feel beyond reason, almost mythical, as if they carry a meaning we can't grasp. And maybe, in a way, they do, because whether we realize it or not, we're all seeking something through others, understanding, healing. There's another side to this. Sometimes these attachments aren't about what we need, but about what we lack. The people who consume our thoughts might symbolize the part of ourselves we haven't yet embraced, a strength we've denied ourselves, a confidence we've never claimed, a love we've never fully given ourselves. And until we recognize this, until we understand what they're reflecting back at us, our minds will keep holding on to them, trying to make sense of what was never really about them in the first place. But even deeper than archetypes and attachments lies something else, something even more powerful, the unhealed wound, the pains we carry, the silent fears that shape our emotions, the subconscious patterns that keep us stuck in the past. And until we can face these wounds, until we confront the real reason certain people stay in our minds, we'll keep searching for answers in all the wrong places. Some thoughts don't just linger. They grip you and pull you back to places you thought you'd left behind. It's as if, no matter how hard you try to let go, some invisible force keeps you tethered, questioning, remembering. But here's what most people don't realize. The reason you can't stop thinking about them isn't because of who they are, but because of what they awakened in you. Carl Jung believed the things we try hardest to suppress are the same things that end up controlling us. That's why certain people stay etched in our minds. They didn't just enter our lives, they activated something we've been carrying for a long time. Maybe it was a fear of abandonment. Maybe it was a wound of rejection. Maybe it was a pain of validation you didn't even realize was still there. And when someone activates that part of you, when they bring up an old wound, the mind clings to them not because they're special, but because your psyche is trying to heal. Think about it. When a physical wound goes untreated, your body keeps sending pain signals so you know something isn't right. The same happens with emotional wounds. If you can't stop thinking about someone, it's because there's a part of you that's still hurt. Maybe they left without explanation, and your mind keeps replaying everything, searching for closure. Maybe they made you feel unworthy, and now you're stuck in a cycle of trying to prove something, if not to them, then to yourself. Maybe they reminded you of something you've been running from. The mind doesn't cling to people. It clings to unfinished emotions, unspoken words, unresolved pain. And until you address the root of your thoughts, they'll keep circling, trying to make sense of what your heart doesn't yet understand. Jung would tell you the answer isn't in obsessing over the person, but in turning inward, tracing the pain back to its origin, understanding why this specific wound exists, and finally giving yourself what you'd been seeking from someone else. So what is it? What's the wound beneath the thoughts? Is it a longing for connection, a fear of being forgotten? Is it a part of yourself never fully embraced? Because until you stop asking why they won't leave your mind and start asking what still needs healing within you, the thoughts will never truly fade. And here's the hardest truth. Sometimes the person you can't stop thinking about is simply a distraction from the real work that needs to be done. And that work isn't about them, it's about you. Because the moment you confront the wound, the moment you acknowledge it was never about them in the first place, is the moment you begin reclaiming control of your heart and your own sense of peace. But before you can let go, before you can free yourself, there's something even more powerful you need to understand: the shadow self. It's the part of you you've been avoiding, the hidden force shaping not just your thoughts, but your entire life. There's a part of you you don't fully know, a part you've pushed down, ignored, buried under distractions, relationships, and endless thoughts about people who shouldn't matter anymore. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the hidden side of you, made up of everything you've denied, rejected, or left unclaimed. And whether you realize it or not, it's this shadow that's shaping your thoughts, your emotions, even your attachments to people you can't seem to forget. What if the person who won't leave your mind isn't there because you love them, or because they're special, but because they're showing you something about yourself you've refused to see? Jung believed the relationships that affect us most deeply, the ones that leave lasting marks, the ones we obsess over, are often the ones that bring us face to face with our own unconscious. Sometimes, what keeps you tied to someone isn't their presence, but how they've awakened a part of you that's been hidden for too long. Have you noticed how certain people evoke extreme emotions in you? Someone might make you feel insecure, abandoned, unworthy, or desperate for validation. Another might make you feel alive, inspired, or like you've finally been understood. The reason they have such a strong effect on you isn't because of who they are, but because of what they reflect back at you. They stir something inside you, something that's always been there, just waiting to be seen. Maybe the person you can't stop thinking about represents a trait you've suppressed. Maybe they embody the freedom, confidence, or emotional depth you've denied in yourself. Maybe they exposed a wound you never wanted to admit was still open. That's why certain people haunt us, because they force us to confront what we've been avoiding. Jung believed that unless you integrate your shadow, unless you acknowledge and accept the hidden parts of yourself, you'll remain stuck in cycles of attachment, longing, and fixation. Your unconscious will keep placing mirrors in front of you, using other people as reflections, until you finally recognize what it's trying to reveal. So ask yourself, what is this person showing you about yourself? What is it about them that creates such a strong emotional reaction? What part of you have you been unwilling to face? Because the moment you stop focusing on them and start focusing on what they represent within you, everything changes. This is where true freedom begins, because understanding your shadow is just the first step. When you recognize what's hidden, you need to learn how to free yourself from its grip. And that's where we begin the journey toward individuation, the path of becoming a fully integrated, conscious version of yourself. If you've made it this far, you've likely realized something profound. The person who won't leave your mind isn't just a person. They're a symbol, a reflection, a messenger of something deeply buried within you. And now that you've seen the projection, the archetypes, the wounds and the shadow, it's time to ask the real question: how do you finally let go? Carl Jung believed true healing comes through a process called individuation, the journey of becoming a fully integrated, conscious version of yourself. Individuation isn't about forgetting, suppressing, or forcing yourself to move on. It's about recognizing why this person had so much power over you in the first place and reclaiming that power for yourself. Letting go isn't an act of resistance, it's an act of understanding. Most people try to move on by distracting themselves, rushing into another relationship, convincing themselves they don't care anymore. But thoughts don't disappear just because you ignore them. If someone is still occupying your mind, it means a piece of your psyche is still entangled with them. The only way to truly free yourself is to extract the lesson your unconscious is trying to teach you. Maybe they awakened in you a longing, a desire for validation, love, or connection you haven't fully given yourself. Maybe they exposed a wound you never wanted to face. Maybe they embodied something you've been suppressing, a part of you waiting to be acknowledged. The key to letting go isn't pushing these realizations away, but integrating them and reclaiming the parts of yourself you projected onto them. It's tending to the wounds they revealed and recognizing they were never the source of what you were seeking. Jung would tell you the reason you can't stop thinking about them is because you've given them ownership over a part of your soul. And the only way to truly move forward is to call that part of you back. This is what individuation is about, learning to become whole, to no longer look for missing pieces in someone else, but to find them within yourself. So instead of asking, why am I still thinking about them? Ask, what do I need to reclaim? Instead of trying to forget, try to understand. Instead of waiting for closure, create it within yourself. The moment you stop seeing them as the answer, the moment you recognize the power to move forward has always been in your hands, is the moment their presence in your mind begins to fade. This is where everything changes, because you're no longer lost in the illusion that another person holds the key to your peace. You see now that the person you were searching for was never them. It was always you. There comes a point when you realize the thoughts aren't about them anymore. The memories, the longing, the questions were never truly about that person at all. They were breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself. Carl Jung showed us that what stays in our minds is a reflection of what stays in our souls. And the moment you stop chasing ghosts and start embracing the lesson, the weight begins to lift. You were never haunted by them. You were being called to heal. And now you know exactly what you need to do to set yourself free. If this script made you think differently, if it gave you a perspective you hadn't considered before, then don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another deep dive into the mind and emotions. And if this message really resonated with you, consider leaving a super thanks. It's a simple way to support the channel and help bring more content like this to those who need it most. Remember, awareness is the first step, but action is what frees you. Take what you've learned, apply it, and move forward.